How old is she?
He's 15.
15. So he's just primed to help you out on the computer.
Oh, he's saying I'm already a clueless old man.
Hey, look, something to look forward to. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, it's coming. Wait, is the other one 17? Wait till you get to that age. It's even worse because they know everything.
Oh, man. Not looking forward to that, man. Do they still go out in the woods with you?
Oh, yeah. Zeb's actually, he took off to go goose hunting right now. And, yeah, so they still like to hunt. Not too bad in that respect.
So we got Mark, Jason, how do you say his last name?
Dufresne.
I was going to mess it up.
Of course you are. And he will by the end of this podcast, Mark. One of us is going to butcher it.
That's all right. I'm used to it.
Yeah. So you got pretty interesting deal. Are you a biologist, right?
Yeah, I went to college for wildlife biology. Worked in the field for a while. Worked Oregon and Alaska and out in the Midwest, and as well as here in New England.
What part of Oregon?
I was down in Medford.
Oh man, you're making brownie points with Jason.
I'm right down the road. I'm out of Grants Pass.
Grants Pass. Oh, I was in there. I was trapping black-tailed deer for a mortality study, and then we collared them and up in Crater Lake. It was fun.
How long ago was that?
Oh, I'm too old. I've already forgotten.
You weren't even born, Jason. You weren't even born. You were a youngin'.
I think it must be 20-something years ago now.
Wow.
All right. Yeah, Jason was just running around in diapers still. He would have been 10 years old. Somewhere in there.
Yeah, still in diapers probably.
Yeah, they did a study in Oregon. It was probably, I don't know if it was that far south. I better clicking this pin. I listened to that last podcast. I was clicking the pin too much. And it was, I don't know if it was just a study you were on or not, but they were studying 40% were 3-point or better. And I don't remember exactly, but was that part of your study?
No, we did. Ours was a mortality study that we had to get a sample of every segment of the population. So we had to have a yearling buck, a yearling doe, and then an adult doe and an adult buck from each unit that we had gridded out.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we had to basically follow them. And, hunters, there was actually a pretty high mortality. Hunters shot some of them. Mountain lions killed some of them. Cars killed some of them. Yeah, it was pretty interesting.
Yeah. The study I was thinking of was because you don't see a lot of big bucks, at least up where I'm from. Like they're out there though, and the study that was like 40% were 3-point or better, but they were almost strictly nocturnal. Like so that was just really interesting.
I saw some tremendous bucks. I wasn't real familiar with the blacktails until I was there, and I did see some. I mean, they were big by anybody's standards. Really.
There's some studs down here. I mean, that's some big buck country. I mean, you'll see 130, 140 inch blacktail.
Yep.
It'll blow your mind.
The further south you go, the bigger the blacktail horn.
Yeah. They actually did some trapping in that study on the Winter Range, which is actually in Northern California. So that was kind of a interesting deal.
Is that the only study you did in Oregon, or were you messing with bears at all?
Yeah, that was it. I did a little tracking of some lions they had collared and some elk and stuff, but basically just the blacktail. That was a year's worth of working on them.
What'd you think of the country?
It was pretty neat. The only thing that kind of threw me for a loop was the last raindrop I saw down there was, I think, May 2nd, and by the end of July the whole place was on fire.
Yep.
And, you couldn't drive on certain roads if there was grass. I wasn't used to that. That was unusual to me. But, and the fact that a lot of animals migrated through there, and I got to know some of the Forest Service folks that were in the spotted owl stuff. So I got to go and see some of them. And it kind of cracked me up, that whole deal. They were practically pets. Put a mouse on your hand and they'd come right down and land on.
Man, you're touching on some.
That's still touchy in Oregon, man.
Touchy, man. You spotted out. We're getting cussed at right now.
Yeah. Well, the funniest thing is they were actually, even back then, they knew that they didn't have to have old growth forest. They were actually finding them in different places, and I'm probably giving out information I probably shouldn't.
Yeah, no, you know, I was up there, not that far south, but they were logging on some national forest up this last year, I think, and they were helicopter logging. And you know, so I pulled up there and I was BSing with the crew. Was it, you know, it was a helicopter coming in, and really cool. But he was like, "Yeah, found out we got to actually. It's getting too thick for the owls to fly through the timber because they're not cutting any timber now. So now they got to go log for the owls. So it was like, used to not log, you know, because it would hurt the owls, and now they found out they can't fly through the forest, so they got to thin it out.
It's kind of a similar ordeal with our lynx here in the Northeast. You know, the heavy logging basically created all the lynx habitat in the regrowth because you're creating rabbit habitat with all the spruce and fir thickets.
Yeah.
And, you know, now all of a sudden they're trying to change all sorts of stuff, and the lynx have been growing just about out of control out here. So they shouldn't really change anything.
Yeah. Like, it's like you're just trying to micromanage, and they just go too far extreme one way.
They circumnavigate anything.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Sure. I may have heard that you came out to Oregon. I remember Alaska, but so you've kind of, you know, made it around. So when you were in school, was it really starting to hippify, or I don't even know what the right word is, but I mean, coming out of biology, there's just so much on the left that we see going in there.
You know, I was on sort of the tail end of what I call, and I might get brutalized for this, but the real biologist.
Are you still a biologist, or?
No, I don't.
So at least you can talk a little. You know, you gotta watch. Yeah. You're gonna have somebody come in and lose your job over this interview.
No. When I was there, there was a trend starting of a lot of these folks that just didn't have any practical, real experience in the woods. They weren't hunters, and that's gotten worse and worse. You know, so I saw the start of the change of that. Well, for instance, so in Oregon, my boss, we became pretty good friends, and he told me, he said, out of 150 applicants, he said I was the only applicant that had actual trapping experience, other than one girl she had trapped mice.
Snap trap.
Yeah, and you know, it's just, that's kind of been a trend, you know, and right now even the game wardens are the same way. The biologists, very few have actual real world experience in the woods, and it's kind of an alarming trend to me. It's unfortunate, really.
Yeah.
Were you working with Vargas when you were down here, or was that before?
I had John Tebus and Wolfer. What was Herb Wolfer?
Yeah, I think it's Herb.
Yeah, I think it was Herb. They were my direct bosses at the time.
Right on.
And so when did you graduate your college there?
It's been so long, I forgot that too.
This is gonna be a slow interview. You gonna remember anything?
I'm getting old, like my kid told me. No, I think it was around. Let's see, it would have been around 95, I think.
Okay,
somewhere right there.
Cool. And so now, so you worked how many years as a biologist around?
Oh, you know, I did it kind of on and off. A lot of seasonal stuff out there. It was always a real hard gig to break into full time. So, you know, I probably bopped around for about 10 years.
And what made you stop? I mean, just get.
You know, really the politics of it really started everywhere I went.
So we only had one guy in the whole building, and he walked out.
You know, it was terrible. And I mean, I saw it in Alaska with the you know, they had to go through resident hire and then these veteran preference points. I mean, I saw guys that had jobs that just had no business. I mean, you were, you know, like in Alaska, I was 500 miles from the nearest Eskimos, and we were way up in there. And, you know, if somebody screwed up, you were in trouble. There was nobody to bail you out.
Yeah.
And working with, you know, I was working with a guy, real nice guy, but he didn't have any business being there as far as doing wildlife work. So I don't know, the politics of it. And then when I was in Oregon, I had a great, a young boss who, he was one of those guys who could fix anything. Didn't need 10 different people to help, you know, do a job. He could do everything. And they ended up replacing him with a guy and told him that the other guy was more qualified. He had to retrain him. That really bothered me because the guy was fantastic, you know, just should have had that job and should have got it full time, and he didn't. So that stuff just started eating at me more and more. And the older I get, I become the grumpy old man, and I'm not as good as eating crow. So I kind of tell it the way it is. And I figured my longevity wouldn't make it too far.
Yeah. No, I can appreciate that.
I can hear that.
Another part of that too, like my wife did the same thing. We met in college, and I worked in Oregon. She worked in Alaska. I think she was there 3 years. I was in Alaska. She was in South Carolina. That we could never get the same jobs in the same place, so we were all over the place. So that wears on you after a while too.
Oh, yeah. What did you? So did you just live out of a trailer? Did you rent a house, or I mean, what?
No, you pretty much just move around. Most of the positions I had would come with some sort of housing,
Okay.
so you were pretty much homeless, kind of
vagabond.
Like I see a couple places where you see these communities up in the national forest, those houses and stuff that they basically let you live there or whatever. They have houses in different spots.
Yeah, you might be in Forest Service housing. I was up in Alaska. I was on the Fairbanks on the Army base housing for a while. It all depended on where you were. A lot of state agencies have basic housing at some of the hatcheries and stuff. So, it just depended on where you were at. Sometimes we'd get a place and rent a place. It just all depended on what we had going.
Yeah, I drive by one of them communities all the time, and I'm like, God, I wish I could just figure out how to get one of those.
I just want one cabin.
I just want one little shack in the back where I can because I'd be right there in the national forest and I could just go hunt from there. But
yeah. Yeah, it was like when I was in Oregon, I had a lot of the keys to the gate closures, and I was the guy, I'd pull up and there's 10 cars parked there, and I'd unlock the gate, lock it behind me, and drive in past all these hikers and stuff. Had to hike 10 miles in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't sent that key back for what do they say? I'm totally botching it right here.
Good one, Jason. Woo,
yeah, that's what I'm doing.
A swing and a miss. A swing and a miss.
Swing and a miss. I'm just saying, if we need to dispose of it, I can make sure to get it over to the authorities for you.
They took that back.
Yeah.
They don't like giving those keys out.
No, it was even with me. I mean, geez, that thing was, you'd have thought you had a sack full of diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
They'd ask you 10 times a day, where's that key? You got that key?
Yeah. I'd probably lose it on for real. I'd be like, no, really, I really lost it. I lost my truck keys. I lost my wallet. I lost a gun out there, and I lost that key. It's a bad deal. I've lost a lot of stuff in the woods. So when did you tell us about your dogs? Like, as far as, was it before, after? I mean, obviously.
Growing up, I was kind of lucky. When you're a kid, you don't even realize it. I grew up with a couple of neighbors. We had Plott hounds. I mean, we hunted everything you could legally hunt with a dog, and probably a few things you didn't. We hunted, and we had rabbit dogs, and we weren't supposed to run deer, but we had a few of them that ran deer sometimes. Not that we were trying to. Bird dogs, you name it, we had it, and we always had Plott dogs, Plott hounds, right. And we had a very well-known neighbor, and actually as a kid, Leroy Hogg, I didn't even know who he was back then, but Leroy Hogg's pretty famous breeder. He's I believe he's in his 90s now. Ferdinand, Indiana, had the swampland Plotts, and he would come out every year and hunt with us. And of course I was probably 9, 10. I got to stay home and take care of all the dogs and do all the chores with the animals, because we were, kind of small family farm and stuff. And I didn't really get to go hunting all the time with them, but Leroy would pay me to skin bears sometimes when he came back, which was kind of neat. And but yeah, I'd see him, in the fall, and I just kind of knew him as the older guy that was tough as nails, walked with a limp and a cane, and everybody told me he was a great hunter.
Right.
So, we were always around dogs, but through Massachusetts, I grew up in Western Massachusetts, right up in the corner near Vermont, New York, and it's when I started getting a little later into high school, thinking about college. We lost our bear hunt there, same as a lot of folks have.
Mm-hmm.
In the blink of an eye, it was gone. There was no more hound hunting, and so everybody sort of either moved away or sold their hounds. knew they were going to be outlaws if they kept them. So most everybody kind of got out of it. And I was getting into college and kind of too busy. I couldn't have hounds really when I was traveling around like that. So yeah, I just sort of went through my college phase and my wildlife stage, and then I got to a point where I got settled a little bit, and friend of mine I met through some wildlife work invited me to go along bear hunting again, and it'd been years since I'd been hound hunting, and oh, it sucked me right back in. The next thing you know, I had a yard full of dogs, and was kind of getting back at it.
They multiply fast, huh?
It does. It happens real fast.
Way too fast. Just like, oh yeah, just one.
I had to actually employ some new tricks with my wife. I figured out a while ago if I just built more dog houses, she wouldn't be able to count them because she didn't realize it. So I just build an extra dog house and slip one in here or there. And then one day, it'd be 6 months later, she says, there are more dogs out there. And I could kind of get away with it for a while.
Tricks of the trade, right?
Yeah, and you had to build them with old weathered wood so they didn't look
brand new. Yeah, they stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, you get a brand new one and dead stick out, but you build them to look old. Get a little chewed on a little bit on the door, take a rasp and make it look like the dog chewed on the door a little bit.
We're into this marriage thing over 20 years now. I've beat her into submission, so it doesn't even matter anymore.
I know the last dog I drug home, my wife didn't even say anything. Like, we knew we had made it right then. She says, you're going to do what you're going to do. So,
yeah, that's the way it is now.
But
yeah, that's it with the dogs.
So what do you do to make money now? You taxidermy?
Yeah, I do, full-time taxidermy, and I guide. I mostly guide here. Just the way our lease system is, in order to run dogs here, you pretty much got to be a guide.
Okay.
So it kind of, in my book, it sort of forced me into it because you're very limited if you don't have a big lease, and it costs, a fair bit of money to get the lease and buy the bait and everything else. And it's hard to even get the leases. You pretty much got to buy out an existing guide. So yeah, I kind of got my guide's license, and I mostly run for outfitters, and there's several that I work with, and through my taxidermy business, I have a lot of guys. They know I bear hunt, and I've always been known as a pretty honest person, so they'll come to me and ask, hey, where can I go get a good bear hunt? So I'll kind of book them through some of these different outfitters, and then I get to hunt there as well. And job security, I get to take them on a bear hunt, and I get to mount their bear.
Yeah, you got a butcher shop out back too? I mean, you could have full meal deal.
Oh, I do that right for pretty much.
It's a whole experience. Just finish. You're out there telling about the biology of it, and then the hunt.
Yeah.
It's like a carnival cruise.
Yeah.
As long as it's not the one where COVID hit.
Yeah, right.
Get locked on a boat. My buddy was they had a cruise scheduled right in the beginning, and they got canceled. They never went. But I'm like, the hell if I was going to go sit on a boat. And I wasn't worried about the COVID stuff. I was worried about them locking me into a damn 8x8 room for 14 days with my wife. I was like, there's no way I'm going to survive coming out of that. I mean, that's not COVID that I'm worried about.
He doesn't mean that how it sounds, Laura.
No, I mean it. If you lock her in an 8x8 room and you don't take her out to exercise her, I will die.
One of you is coming out of there.
Yeah. It's not going to be a good deal. So I was like, there's no way.
Did you do the taxidermy later on then? Like you got through all your biology stuff, or did you always kind of mess with it?
Yeah, so the story of my whole life is I'm pretty much always poor. And if I want to do something, I have to figure out how to do it myself. Yeah. I just kind of dive in with both feet and figure it out. So when I was 8 years old, grew up in a hunting family and loved going to the taxidermist. And I think I had a pet duck I'd caught wild on the river.
A pet duck?
Pet duck. Okay. And of course, the pet duck died. And
they all do. They all die.
Every one of them. I can't keep a pet duck.
Yeah. So when I was 8 years old, I mounted my first critter, and
it was a duck.
It was a duck, and
was it your pet duck?
It was my pet duck. Okay. All I could say was there was a lot of really messed up looking critters for several years, but yeah, and when I was 16, I kind of I got into it a little more serious. I realized my stuff sort of looked like a bad cartoon, and I wanted it to look a little better, so started going to taxidermy competitions when I got my driver's license, and and sort of realized the artwork of it and what you could really do. So then I always stayed with it. You know, as a business, you know, when I was in high school, that's kind of what I did most of the time. And, you know, my mom was a bartender, and it actually had half the liquor room was my taxidermy shop. So it was a popular place for the guys to hang out.
You ever sit at a party or, you know, get together with one of your old friends that you did a favor for way back in the beginning, and you're looking at the wall just like embarrassed, like keep your head down?
Oh, I had this good friend I grew up with. So he had, like, the first year I ever did it, he had a deer head. The second year, third year, fourth year, he had like 6 years of deer heads, and he kept them, and he always, you know, he liked to look at the progress of it. I just would cringe when I'd look at the first couple. You know, it was awful. It was
Do
terrible.
they get better when you get drunk? The more beers you have, it's like you know, at a bar. You know, does the smell get a little better?
Yeah, you can't tell the eyes are crooked, and, you know, the ears are backwards, and
It's easy to sell taxidermy at a liquor store, right?
oh, it helps a lot. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That is funny.
No, there's a lot. Like, I look at cats a lot. You know, cats are so difficult to do.
Yeah,
and there's so many people that think they do pretty good on them, and there's a lot of nice people out there that don't tell them.
yeah,
like, oh yeah, okay, good job. It's like, that sucks. But
yeah,
you got to start somewhere. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
that's the flip side.
And cats are so hard.
You know, having a real knowledge, even today, with taxidermists. You know, I've actually, as of this year, I've been doing taxidermy for 40 years, and you know, there's guys that have been doing it for 40 years. They're no better than they were 40 years ago.
There's guys that are hunting dogs that are that same way, probably.
Oh, it's awful, you know, and nobody has the heart to really tell them they suck, but they just keep on plugging along. And you know, but this is the thing I tell customers. Ask me, you know, they've had stuff done by other guys, and like, well, what do you think? And I said, it doesn't matter what I think. I said, are you happy with the mount?
Right.
If they say yes, I said, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Don't ask anybody. You know, if you like it, that's good.
Well, and I'm sure you've got good insight, you know, being a biologist too. I mean, like, cats are so hard to find a good cat mount because they're so unique. You know, guys that spend a lot of time with the game, or, you know, like up close and personal. I'll bet that was a big help, wasn't it?
Oh, for sure. And, you know, I've always had a real interest in anatomy and stuff. And a lot of the taxidermists out there today, like, there's so many deer head mannequins on the market. They can mount a great looking deer. And, you know, but when it comes to life size stuff and cats and any of it, there's so many alterations and adjustments that you have to make, because the stock forms on that life size stuff, they're real limited. You know, they don't fit properly. And a lot of guys don't even know how to begin to change that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So having that knowledge of anatomy, and I've always enjoyed sculpting and stuff. So, you know, I've actually made my own forms, cast my own forms. It really helps you out in that department a lot.
Yeah. What's your favorite animal to mount?
You know, I like them all.
A duck?
You know,
is it your first?
Yeah,
you hold that special spot for that first duck?
No, I'm not even sure where he ended up. Thank goodness. But, you know, I like the bobcat hunt, and I always like I can really appreciate a really good bobcat mount when I see a taxidermist that really knows how to do them. I've always liked really doing a real nice cat mount. You know, and sometimes those great big bucks are always fun too. Big moose. It all depends.
Yeah. You get a lot of moose up there?
Oh, tons of moose up here. Yeah.
I've got
the older I get, I don't enjoy them quite as much. Just, you know, you start getting the 60+ inch racks, and they're just so big and hard to work on that it sort of abuses you as you get older.
How do you mount? I mean, that's got to be how do you mount a big old head? Like, is it on screws? I mean, what you gotta use thick screws?
Yeah, so, you know, basically there's a urethane foam mold that's in them. So the mold itself is not heavy. You know, and then there's a wooden block molded into the top of the head. So, you know, when an average guy cuts off a set of antlers, they sort of cut down between the eyes and the antlers and then out to the back of the skull. So that's how you attach it to the mount. You screw it right into that plywood block. And, you know, the skin is separate. You know, basically it's cut up the back so that you can work it around the antlers and remove it.
So I got a question. I got I'm gonna offend somebody, maybe not. On a mount, they're like a styrofoam, right? Because when you pick one up, like my wife's cougar, it was just like, oh, I mean, it's light. You know what I mean?
It doesn't weigh much, yeah.
And I may or may not have had a bobcat done recently by somebody who's newer, and so I wanted to give them the opportunity to practice.
Yep.
And it felt like, I want to say like a pinata, but you know what I mean? Like I could hear a crinkle around the skin. Like,
yeah,
is that normal? I mean, I'm the only one I got to compare is I have a bear and a cougar, and I mean, when you feel those, it's firm. I mean, it's like it's almost like I would imagine it's a styrofoam.
Right. So I would gather the crinkle part of it is, he probably didn't prepare the form correctly. Basically, you have to prep the surface of the foam, and it's not a styrofoam; it's a urethane foam, so it's a denser foam than that white bead styrofoam.
Okay.
So it's a pretty dense foam, and you have to prepare the surface because when it's molded, you have to coat the inside of the rigid mold with a release agent, and then you pour the liquid foam in there, which expands, and that's how you get a finished mold out of it.
Oh.
So if you don't prepare the surface of that and you don't use the right glue, then the skin doesn't stick to it.
Okay.
And
use like a wire brush.
Yeah, if it doesn't fit correctly and there's extra skin, then you'll really hear some crinkling.
So I'm hearing the skin crinkle.
I believe that's probably what you're hearing because it's not adhered to the mannequin itself properly.
Yeah, I can't tell when it's on the wall. You can't tell, but just holding it and handling it, I was like, this is what I was expecting. Number one, the rocks. I was like, are you using real rocks? Damn, this thing's heavier than my cougar mount.
It looks heavy.
Yeah.
I was sweating. I'm like trying to put it up there, in on the wall. I mean, I was like, holy hell, this thing's.
It looks good up
workout, but
yeah, and that also translates a little bit into the longevity of the mount because if the skin is properly adhered and glued to the mannequin so that there's no movement, time, you're a lot better off because time, expansion, contraction, if it's not glued properly, eventually the skin will crack and you'll see a lot of old deer heads where the nose and eyes crack and sort of open up. That stuff happens because the skin wasn't really glued or properly adhered to the mannequin.
That's interesting. Like I said, I knew going into this. I mean, he cut me a smoking deal. You know what I mean? Like I probably paid for materials. You know what I mean? I'm not expecting this kid to do a Phil Soucy. Compared to Phil Soucy's cougar. You know what I mean? Like that's not a fair expectation. Put anything close. So I'm not beating this kid up. I'm not anything about it. I strictly had a cat that I was like, I'm not going to have this thing mounted, but I could. And so I pretty much paid for some materials and let him practice.
And he did a good job. I mean, considering how far he's came, because this is the same kid that did the tanning and stuff a while ago, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So he's young.
Yeah, real young.
He's doing really good. Like,
I don't know if he's still in high school or not, but it's kind of like you're talking about. Man, what's your first duck look like? You know what I mean? Like, got to start somewhere. So,
but bad taxidermy is one of the greatest things on the face of the planet in my eyes. Like I love seeing old taxidermy where like lips are curling off of it.
Oh, people have given me books of there's this one book, it's Bad Taxidermy from Around the World. And I mean, if you have any sense of humor, you will your pain.
Oh, they're great. I brought one home. I went to a yard sale with Danny. This is before we were married. And we were in her car and I found this crappy old forked horn taxidermy and he had his little hooves up so he could hold a gun, like a gun rack. And I said, man, I really want to get that. And the answer was, you are not putting that in my car. So I proceeded to load it in the car after the guy sold it to me for like $5 on principle.
Right.
Well, we got home. I left it in the car, came out later that night to go get it. And it was filled with like termites or ants or something nasty. And the whole inside of her new Ford 500 was like bug ridden. And I still haven't lived that one down.
Where's the mount?
It actually got nailed up above the horseshoe pit outside, so it lasted another 3 years. His name was Bucky, and we used to hang the horseshoes on his hooves. It was cool.
Coming back from picking them books up, and James texted me a picture of a mount he found. He's like, I just had to buy it, and he's like, it's a horrible lion mount, and he's like, this thing I could probably sell it to some dive bar somewhere.
Yeah, right.
Put it up in the dive bar, but he's like, I just had to have it, man. It was so.
They're cool.
Oh,
they're collectors now, Mark.
Yeah, for sure.
Early work of the great artist Mark Dufresne.
So when you go to a competition, do they have like the funny category? You know what I mean? Like when you pull up to the big competition, do they have like the joke category? Where are these mounts like legitimately tried to be good? You know, I mean, you see some of them.
Yeah,
and you're like, man,
it's pretty legitimately pretty serious competition. I mean, it's they're looking at inside nostrils with microscopes practically,
no
and
kidding.
I mean, you got to really know what you're doing nowadays to compete. It's pretty advanced, yeah.
That's cool. And then so your dogs, when did you get back into them, and how?
Yeah, so when I got back into dogs, the Plott hounds, everybody that I had grown up with, those Plott hounds were all gone, disappeared. Really didn't know where to start. So I just like everybody, you just try this dog, that dog, you end up with 50 rejects, and you just kind of keep picking away. And I just keep remembering saying to myself, man, I remember those dogs, and they were the real deal. And these dogs that Chip Sprague owned, they were swampland bred Plotts, and I mean, they were tremendous. He hunted all over the country, Canada. He hunted everywhere, and they just caught game every time you put them down. So you go through that phase of why can't I do this? Why am I chasing moose and deer and running away from bears? And I just kind of kept thinking in my mind I had to figure out how to get back to the Plotts and get the right ones, and just trial and error and working at it. I got a good one, and all of a sudden the tides turned, and started killing whatever bear I wanted, and then I got another one, same related to it, and basically, well, Joe Hudson.
Yep.
Real heavy in Joe Hudson's breeding, the Shamrock dogs, and started to, as I wanted to get more of them. Basically, you really got to become a student of it to understand. Why are these dogs so much better than this other 50 dogs I went through, and the line breeding and the family breeding and the inbreeding, and you have to learn how to produce that, and what dogs, what ancestors, and of course with the biology background I had, I kind of understood breeding and also growing up on farms and whatnot. So it kind of fascinated me, and I really, the first goal I had was I wanted a dog that I could kill big bears with, the big mean bears, and I got that. And then from there, I wanted more dogs.
So what was the difference in the dog when you didn't? What solved that problem? What was it about the dog?
Sure. Basically, it's a whole host of traits, but absolute great nose, great intelligence, stamina, and the ability to not need another dog around. The one dog that's not looking over its shoulder for its buddies, but it's running to catch, I guess you'd say, and a toughness once they got there on those bad bears. Here in Maine, I listened to Paul Laney's podcast, and Paul nailed it as far as our bears here, they stay on the ground. The majority of them, I've had years where I treed one bear and killed 25 of them on the ground. Thickness of the habitat and the spruce and fir thickets, a dog has to work a bear close and tight, and it can't see that bear 5 feet away at times, so it's got to stay in there, and it's got to be intelligent enough not to get caught. But I finally got that dog, Bryn, who was very heavy in Joe Hudson's breeding and Steve Hurd's Bluff Creek breeding, and she was doing it for me. You talk about the heart of a dog. I guess when I first noticed, I knew what I had, I should say, was she was just I think she had just turned 2 years old, and I was hunting some corn, and she'd really been doing good that year. And she went out, and we were hunting the backside of these corn pieces were a big mountain, and no roads, all on foot. and she got up on a big bear there, and this was in the kill season, and we couldn't get into her. I tried all day, and I was pretty close to her there at about 4:30, and I heard her get caught, and the bear roughed her up pretty bad, and she didn't bark, didn't move, and I got up in there and sat with her for a little while. She was pretty banged up, and finally she got up and she teetered off the mountain and got her home, and couldn't really walk around much, and doctored on her quite a bit, and I think it was 5 days later, I decided to go hunting with some young dogs, and she was in the house. And now keep in mind, she'd hardly even walk. I had to almost carry her out, to go to the bathroom and whatnot. I let her stay in the house with me. And anyway, I left the door open and I forgot something. I ran in the house. I turned around to get into the truck, and there she sat on the seat. And I said, "Come on, you're not in any shape to go hunting." And you talk about an intelligent dog. That dog wouldn't even look me in the eye. She looked out the passenger window. And I went over to the passenger side to open the door, and she went over to the driver's side, wouldn't even look at me. I said, "All right," says, "you can go." And I had no intention of turning her loose.
Yeah.
And we got to the field, and this cornfield I walked into, and she managed to climb over the top of me through 10-inch wide open window, hit the ground, and in 10 minutes she had a bear bayed. We went and we killed it. And I said, "That's a dog with heart," and I realized later how much she'd been damaged. It tore the muscles off her pelvis, and she was running and catching bears. And the vet said, "There's no sense in surgically reattaching it." He says, she's still moving, and the scar tissue from it would be worse. So I said, that's the kind of dogs I remember. They just had a lot of heart, and tough.
Yeah.
And that's what I went after, and tried to breed more of and find more of. And I guess I kind of call it the old school Plott, for lack of a better description. The dogs of the old days, they were gritty, they were tough, they were smart. They got the job done on the really bad bears, and that always stuck in my head. And a lot of the dogs, even Plotts that I was trying, they'd gone the direction of coon breeding. And the first bear they'd meet on the ground, I mean, they were back under the truck laying there. Didn't even ever get hurt. Half of them just quit when they saw a bear. If it ran and treed, it was great. So I knew I had to get away from that, and get into those, what I call the old school Plotts. They're not for everybody. You get some injuries, you get some damage, but the more that I guided, the more I found I kind of needed that style of dog, because a lot of the hunters just nowadays, they're not very good at getting through the woods. And a good bear hunter could kill these bears in 30 minutes. Unfortunately, with a lot of these sports, 8 or 9 hours later, you're killing these bears. So you have to have a dog that can just stay in there and keep going no matter what. So that's kind of the reason I bred and started breeding the dogs, and trying to make more of them that were like that.
So do you cat hunt? Do you guys have a cat season up there?
Yeah, we got a bobcat season. There's no training season, but our bobcat season starts December 1st, goes to February 21st, I think it is. And our snow conditions the last few years are pretty horrid. We're hunting on just ice and junk crust, and out of an entire season like that, you get about maybe a week, or maybe if you're lucky 2 weeks of good running conditions. But I got into the bobcat hunting through a friend, and I just kind of fell in love with it. I don't like to guide it. I want to just save it all for myself. I want to enjoy it. I want to keep it sort of pure, and so I just do it myself, and I have fun out there. Tough conditions, and takes a totally different style dog than a lot of these bear dogs.
And so, yeah, that's kind of where I was leading to. Is you have different dogs for the cats versus bears?
Yeah, and now my best dog, Bryn, that I told that story about, she became the best cat dog I've had. She could do both.
Okay.
And but as a rule, I keep my cat dogs and my bear dogs pretty separate. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm any great cat hunter. I love to bobcat hunt. right now I'm down on dogs, catch some cats here and there, but it's not, you guys want to go on a real cat hunt, you talk to Paul Laney, he's the guy. But I have fun doing it. And, when it's just me out there and nobody's paying, I can do what I want. And as long as I'm enjoying it, I'm happy with it.
No, absolutely.
That's kind of cool. I mean, because when you make your hobby your job, I mean, I know all three of us can probably relate to a point. Like, it's nice to have a little something that you, like to go do that cat hunting.
And that's what that cat hunting is for me. That's my escape from the world. When you're out there and it's 20 below zero and, your beard and mustache are frozen together, there's nobody out
what
there.
Are you talking? I mean, as we're talking right now, I just got my email from ODF&W because they didn't.
Yeah.
My hunting license for Oregon came in, and I'm like, 70 and sunny tomorrow. I'm going cat hunting.
Yeah, right.
Go pursue.
We get some extreme cold during bobcat season. It's I can think of a number of hunts that were 15 to 20 below. You're kind of almost stupid to go out there. But at the same time, if I've got a day off that I'm not working, I'm going. And good, bad, or indifferent. And I've had some of the wildest trips I've ever had have been out there, in the middle of nowhere all by myself and one dog, and just enjoyed the heck out of it.
Yeah. That's kind of how I feel. Is like, man, I'm just gonna go. Like, whatever the conditions are, that's what I'll have to hunt to. But
you can't wait for perfect everything. Sometimes you just got to say to hell with it and just go.
Yeah. Tomorrow's gonna be a little too warm, but I'm gonna go.
Get out early.
Get out there early and just that's my heads up to Jason.
Buddy's gonna be out in the morning.
That's his disclaimer. I'm out.
Exactly.
Yeah, September through about end of February is a little rough. Crossing paths most of the time. We at least once a week we'll touch base.
Yeah, on my way home sometimes.
Yeah,
on the road.
Get an inReach message or something.
But that's what keeps you from burning out. And a lot of people, don't realize that. And I guess with the taxidermy, a lot of guys get burned out with taxidermy. And I had been there, years back, and I figured out a long time ago how to sort of manage that. And you got to make some time for yourself. And for me, I just walk away. And hey, if you don't like it, go somewhere else. I'm sorry, but this is my time, and I'm going.
Yeah. So you are you a one-man shop?
Yeah. Over the years, I tried to get different people in here to help me, and they caused more damage than they helped me.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, everybody thinks they could start out at, I want to make $25 an hour, and I laugh at them. I said, I've been doing it 40 years, and there's days when I make $5 an hour. If you figure out,
there's days that I got to pay $5 to work here, man.
Yeah.
You know how it is when you have a business. I mean, you wake up at 1 a.m. Oh my gosh, with your note list, I forgot, and writing stuff down. And so I just decided a long time ago to just keep it small, keep it manageable, just me, and then I can kind of go and do what I want to do. But I don't get paid vacations and all that. I just, but I accept it. You sacrifice for what you want to do, and I sacrifice to go out there and hunt, but that's my choice.
Yeah.
See, I was that guy that screwed everything up. I apprenticed with a buddy of mine, Heath, for a while, and that taxidermy is I don't think I screwed anything up too bad, but I'll say I do not have the finger dexterity.
Bullshit.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Heath will let you know. Just ask him. I don't have the dexterity in my fingers to do that. I don't have the attention to detail. Like, that is true artistry, what you guys do.
It does take, and I've had people pay to teach them over the years, and I've told a couple of them after 2 days, I looked at them and I said, here's your money back. Go find another hobby, because this one is not for you. And it's kind of cruel, but some people got it, and other people will never.
I would agree. I will never have it.
Yeah. I don't even want to try it. I was never, until, like I said, the cougar, and I killed a bear, which I had mounted, and I should have rugged it, but I did a shoulder mount. It was my first mount ever. I've never mounted a deer, and I'm going to try and get an elk mounted, but I never was into it too much. I was like, taxidermy never. And now I kind of just want there's been just a couple. It's like, man, I can totally appreciate it better than I could in the beginning, but I still don't want to do it myself.
The ones that mean something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got a few. Like I've got a lion mount behind me here. I went out to Utah and with a buddy who took our dogs out and you know, killed a real nice lion. Probably the only one I never care if I ever shoot another one. But that was a do-it-yourself 14 days. We killed it on the 14th day on our last day, and
how many did you treat before that?
Trying to think, two or three, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a long time ago too.
Yeah, you go for good snow and just hit the conditions.
Yeah, you know, we kind of waited, and I told it. Of course, this gets you in the doghouse. You know, I told my wife all year. I said, I wanted to do this my whole life. When the snow comes, I'm going. So, you know, here comes November. You know, normally there's snow. There's nothing.
Yeah.
You know, nothing up high, nothing anywhere. And here comes December, no snow. Well, guess what? 3 days before Christmas, it started snowing. What does Mark do? He gets in the truck and he drives out the driveway. And I said, see you later. And so, yeah, I spent Christmas out in the doghouse in Utah.
No, just gone. That's the best way to do it, though, man.
Get home, and I said, hey, I'm going. And it snowed for 5 days. And man, when we got out there, we were in neck deep snow, but then the lions and the elk and the deer, everything started coming down lower into the valleys, and the lions followed. And it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good hunt, good time.
Yeah, that's probably the best advice that if somebody wants to come out west to do it is make sure the snow's right, you know, because it is tough duty. It's not that you can't do it. There are guys that do it and can be consistent about it. Man, if you're not in your area and you don't know, and old tracks and conditions, and there's just a ton of things that, man, guys look at their schedule and it's like sometimes you just need to open your schedule up, be ready to roll.
Right. And yeah, it worked. It worked good for us. We had fun and great. I always kind of like the do-it-yourself trips. That's just kind of the person I am, and you make plenty of screw-ups and have a few disasters, but those are the things you remember. So, I'm not one to go pay somebody and do it. I want to kind of figure it out on my own and make my mistakes and see where it takes me.
Oh, yeah. Do you have any mistakes on that trip?
Oh, yeah.
Any good ones?
Yeah, start from the top.
Nothing crazy, really. Just bumming snowmobiles off of buddies and trying to drive them places that they really shouldn't have gone. And, spending hours shoveling in this powder snow like nothing I've ever seen. I spent about 20 minutes shoveling and got a hole around the sled, and I stand up, and then the whole hillside slides down and covers it 5 feet deeper. And I thought, what in the hell kind of snow is this stuff?
It's different out there, isn't it?
It is different. I've never in my life seen snow like that, and it was bizarre to me. You could walk on a hillside, and the whole hillside would just start moving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Our snow isn't like that here. I mean, it freezes up and sets up, and it's nothing like that powdery stuff was.
So your sleds will stay up on top of it for the most part?
Oh, sure. I mean, now there's times you're down in it, but usually there's layers there. Somewhere there's a crust layer, and so, yeah, you stay up on top pretty well. A lot of the times you'll step off a sled or something, and, you might go, armpit deep in the side, but, your sled stays right up on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I had one. It was last year or 2 years ago. It had not snowed hardly at all, and then it just dumped. And I mean, like 3 feet dumped. And weirdest, I was like, well, I'm going hunting. And so I went up by myself, and I got up this little skid road, and I started to unload the truck, and it was going up. And man, I mean, the snow was coming around the snowmobile. Like, I just couldn't believe it. It was just like a little, the best I could describe it was like an avalanche going around my snowmobile as I'm going forward. Yeah. And it started to bog down, and I'm thinking, so one time I turned around, I was like, I'm going home. I'm going to go get a buddy, and tomorrow I'll come back up here. And so I got a buddy to cut me a trail in ahead of me because I was,
Yeah.
And the dog trailer on, right?
Yeah. It was either, so it was either I go run and go back and get the dogs.
Right.
I just knew in my head, I'm like, I am going to screw myself. I'm going to get so far back in here. I couldn't hardly turn around. And so that was the one time that those conditions, and it's weird because you think about snow. That was the one time that I was like, that snow was just so different that it was like an avalanche in front of me, and my machine was bogging down, and everything was going wrong. And I'm just thinking, boy, it's going to take me 3 days to get out of here. I might as well turn around and work this 4.5 miles back. And probably nothing moved anyways. And so I went back up the next day with a buddy, and I just ran him in front because he had an open machine. And so I just keep going, man, until you can feel comfortable stopping, and I'll just come in behind you. And sure, we found a track, but it was just like, man, so going in a different area and in different conditions, like I can totally appreciate that. You show up one day, it's like, this is nothing like what I've ever dealt with before, and your mind's trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah, it was interesting, but a lot of fun.
Well, the snowmobiles are.
Where was your cat? I mean, what was the track like?
Oh, this is the funny part. So we were staying, actually, my friend Jared, it was his family. They lived up in Salt Lake Valley, basically. In Provo was where we were, and we kind of stayed at their house, and then we just went out hunting. And the whole week, there's sort of this plateau from the bottom of the valley. It goes up, whatever, I don't know, 500-600 feet. And there was this big plateau of oak brush, and then the big mountains went up. And of course, all the mule deer were down in that oak brush, and even down into the bottom of the valley where the houses were. And we kept saying all week, we're like, we need to just walk up there. And so it was like the second to last. We're going to leave the next day, and Jared and I got up at like 8 o'clock. We'd slept in a little bit, and we were like, take one dog loose, and we'll just go walk up on the valley, up into that oak brush. And we were walking up there, and we're watching elk, and the openness is awesome there. Like we don't get to see stuff like that, so we're looking at these giant mule deer and elk and stuff, and we're just having fun, and the blue sky and the snow, and looking at tracks and critters. And all of a sudden we look at each other, we're like, hey, there's an old lion track, let's follow it. Right. And it was a couple day old, melted a little bit on the south slope, and we start following it, and we're like, hey, that looks like a mule deer buried. Hey, look at the lion running away. And all of a sudden there we were. And
so you actually seen the lion run off the
no, it jumped right out of its bed and run away.
Oh, man.
And it was bedded like 20 yards from the mule deer. And so it ran out on the edge of this cliff in this little juniper, and we're just eye to eye, and it's like, wow, this is crazy. And all of them, of course, I had never run lions at all, so I didn't know, but I noticed every time you treed one, they basically run down, and as soon as they start up, they treed.
Yeah.
So I went running right to the bottom of this valley, and there was a little hiking trail with a waterfall there that people were hiking up, from town. And well, he treed right above me. So I'm looking at him up there in the bush, and my friend Jared was right there looking at him eye to eye, and jumped down, and he come right down. And it was just the neatest thing to watch. And then he treed in a Douglas fir beside that, just above that waterfall. And boy, I'm sitting there looking at him, and I'm like, I don't have a lot of lion experience, but I can tell you a couple we saw, this thing looks monstrous, and I didn't even have my gun with me. Jared's wife had gone to town to get some pictures of some of the lions. We treated it earlier in the week, and luckily we got phone service, called her up and said, hey, can you come up to such and such a parking lot and reach under the passenger's seat? There's a pistol there, and come on up in here. And
come for a hike. Come for a hike and see a waterfall, and we'll take a little detour.
Yeah. And I think the best part was after I shot the lion, we're lugging it down the trail that all these hikers are coming up. They had no idea there's even lions there. I mean, and it was a nice lion. I appreciate it now a lot more than I even did then. It was 150 pounds, empty stomach.
Oh, damn, that's a nice lion.
That's a big cat.
And he was, when we tagged it in there, the biologist came out, and he said, oh, you're the first ones to kill one in that unit. And he came around the truck and looked at it, and he's like, wow. He says, that's a dandy. And I don't know, it looked pretty big to me. But it was have a Boone and Crockett skull on it. Nice line.
That's awesome. Yeah, they're really hard to judge, especially if you've never seen them before.
Right.
Because every lion is kind of impressive when you first walk into it, even a smaller one. But then when you walk into a big one, it's like they just know they're the king of the mountain. They have
and that's how this one struck me. He just had a head like a basketball to me, and it was just different than the other the other lion.
Yeah.
You know,
He's look pissed off up there. I mean, is he just?
Oh, he was just going on and snarling, and
man,
yeah, you know, and the Douglas fir was up higher, so that wasn't as impressive. But when he was right there, and we've got it on video, like when he jumped out of that little juniper, and you know, he jumps onto this little. I mean, it looked like it was a vertical cliff, and he just lands, you know, whatever, 40 feet down there, and hops, and then he walks around, dropping snow off of this ledge as he walks around it and jumps down, and it was just neat to see that big old tail, you know, for balance flopping around. Pretty impressive.
Oh yeah, yeah, they're neat. Well, that's like on day 14, huh? That was the last day. Yeah, you'd already been defeated. You already felt the defeat coming.
Yeah, you know, and the cool thing is honestly, I went out there. I wanted to see a lion. Right. I didn't care if I shot one.
Right.
And we had one that was in a great, you know, little tiny juniper, you know, 15 feet tall, climbed right up in there, got pictures, you know, with the thing spitting on the camera lens. That's what I really wanted. And we got that. So, you know, harvesting one was just sort of like dessert, you know, I didn't really expect it. And like I said, I'd probably never kill another one. I'd love to go run them again. But I don't need to actually harvest one. The fun part, you know, was seeing them like I got to see them.
Yeah.
So was there a lot of cold trailing on the ones you caught prior to that one? I mean, that sounds like it was pretty hot.
That one was, that was red hot. You know, the one
Any hotter than that, guys.
Yeah, right.
You're going to walk a track out at the point where you're watching the tail flop around. You're like, probably should bring the dogs in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, they were just loose with us. So, I mean, we didn't even the dogs saw it the same time we saw it. You know, it was in the tree, I think, before I even realized there was a lion laying there.
Well, that's funny.
But yeah, you know, the first one we treed was, I don't think it was a terrible far cold trail, but of course, dragging my fat butt up and down them canyons, I thought it felt like it was 20 miles. But it just sort of trailed up over this, you know, out of one canyon, up over this ridge line, down into another canyon, and they jumped there and treed. But, you know, really, I mean, we just walked to a tree is what we did. We didn't get to, other than a little bit of cold trail, and you couldn't hear any of it. You know, it was out of hearing pretty fast.
Yeah.
You know, I was actually, I guess for me as a bear hunter with these long races, it was kind of a letdown as far as the race went. I didn't expect that. You know, I thought there would be more for some reason. I don't know why, but it just did. And, you know, these bear races, I mean, you know, you get on these bay ups and they go on for 6, 7, 8 hours. And, you know, this was like, man, you jump the cat and it's a treat. And now they can obviously get into ledges, and we didn't have to deal with that, but you obviously could. But it was a neat experience. I enjoyed it, really did.
Yeah, the hard part on the lion for a lot of it is before the jump. You know, they don't have as big lungs, and you know, everybody's like, "Oh, lion." It's like, well, after the jump, that's the easy part. You know, figuring out the hard part is on the lion. When you watch the tail run off, it's like, man, you poodle can catch them.
It's a done deal. Yeah, you know, and we had had some decent bobcat dogs with us, so you know, had hunted a lot of bobcats. So for them, that was pretty easy work, you know, on the lions. But again, we didn't, you know, you get on one of those lions, and I've learned so much more about them now. You know, they might walk 30 miles in a night, and you know, through burned out south facing slopes and north covered snows, you know. That I could see would be pretty neat to do.
Yeah.
We just never got into any of that experience.
No, we got to go back.
Yeah. And
Christmas this year. What are you doing for Christmas, Mark?
I probably won't do the Christmas thing again.
You learned your lesson.
I think I'm, 21 years later, I'm still paying for that.
She still brings that one up once in a while, huh?
Oh, I still hear it, man. It's the elephant in the room, doesn't ever forget that.
It sounds like it was worth it, though. I can't believe you were just going to skip over that story like it was nothing. Like, Buddy practically beats it out of you.
I've learned to not mention it because it brings up very large ghosts out of the closet. Yeah.
Yeah, it stings a little. Now you're going to pay for it again tonight. You had dinner yet?
She's not here right now, and she won't listen to this because she hears me spew my stories all the time. So, yeah, I'm safe right now.
That's perfect. Laura hasn't listened to a single podcast. I'm good. Like one day she's gonna listen to them all, and I'm gonna get it all in one. She's gonna be like, "And on episode 3, you said this," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna be done."
He comes in with a list. You just
exactly.
Just better go lion hunt.
Well, and this isn't your first rodeo, right? You did Houndsman XP podcast a while ago.
Yeah. We
made a note. It was episode 14. If anybody wants to hear more from Mark, check it out.
Yeah. No, it was fun. We
probably should have re-listened to that one so we didn't record the same podcast over.
Yeah, right. I haven't listened to that
same
one.
Stories. I don't know.
No, we've gone a different direction here, so that's good.
We're safe.
Well, and to preface this, like literally, we just got off the phone with Mark like 3 hours ago because Buddy and Mark had been talking. And we were going to set this up. Well, we had free time today. So this was
I may or may not have let the team know that we talked, Mark. It was just kind of like I was talking with Jason. He's like, because we got to get a couple other guys on. And so Jason calls me, goes, "You think we should?" I said, "Oh, yeah, check with Mark too." I was talking to him. I got him lined up. Jason's like, "Mark, what? Who? What?"
I'm like, "Who is this guy? Let me check it out." And then it all clicked. But yeah, this was spur of the moment. So we kind of figured it would be a little different.
Yeah, it is. I hope somebody enjoys it, but I don't know if they will or not.
Yeah, well,
we hope they do
train wreck stories and jumping lines. We might make a good podcast yet, Mark.
Yeah, we might come around yet.
Oh, what do you got for any train wreck stories? We got to get a good.
Oh man, so I got a few good ones there. I'll give you 2 of them, 2 different versions. One was
the true version.
The
real
the
true version. No, they got 2 different versions. I want the Mark version and the true version. Let's hear that.
Well, we'll give the no name version. So this one, when the hunters generally come in on Sunday, I give them the big spiel of what they can expect, and around dinner or after dinner, whatever, and you tell them, what the rules are and different scenarios they can expect and how to be ready for anything. And just the simple stuff like, hey, no drinking and hunting, here in Maine, you can't have a loaded gun in the vehicle. So I always touch on that and, go through all of that. We're all good. So we go hunting and, guy was looking for a big bear and, so we pretty selective, we use cameras checking at the bait so we can really, kind of looking for that 300 pounder and up. And I'd never hunted this guy, didn't know him. So there was a helper one day at this guide outfit that went along with us. And I was down there was this one bait and it had a huge bear, over 500, I'd say. And but he was coming in with about 6 other bears. So I'd been checking, trying to catch him for, a couple of weeks where he was there by himself. And I go down there and I get the camera chip out and I'm looking, sure enough, there he is. And I was like, oh man. And I'm looking at these pictures, just drooling, and it was like a 4 a.m. track. And here it is, just after daylight, 7 o'clock. This is going to be sweet. And all of a sudden I hear a gunshot. And I was like, what in the world? And it sounded like a shotgun, which a bird season is open. So I thought that young fella had shot a grouse. And so I come up and I'm madder than a horn. I'm like, what the hell are you doing shooting grouse? And walks by me and his face is as white as a ghost. And I was like, oh, so what's going on? And I get over to the truck and yeah, so he was playing with the guy's rifle. And the rifle went off. Evidently, it was loaded. And it was one of these blazer rifles. I mean, you could fit your elephant gun, put your thumb in the bore. Well, it went through the floor, through the starter, and chopped off the transmission line.
Oh.
And here we are. I was about 20 miles from the gate.
Did you have the dogs with you?
The dogs were in the truck.
Okay.
Oh.
And I had not turned the dogs loose yet, that part was good. I guess if you could only take one good thing out of that day, it was the fact that I hadn't turned them loose yet.
Didn't.
But here I sat, I was madder than a hornet, and I'm like, what do I even say to this? What do I do? And well, the first thing I said is I told that kid, I said, you get on your friggin' boots and you start walking, because he had about a 20-mile hike to get to town to any communication, and he started walking, and then I had a few words for the sport. And then I went for one of those walks that you guys mentioned. I went for about a 3-mile walk.
Yeah.
And I just had to sort of come back down to earth for a little while and look at the good point that I hadn't turned the dogs loose and cry about the fact that it was the bear I wanted all season and I wasn't going to get to put a dog on him.
Oh yeah.
Dang.
So that was a pretty good train wreck there. I think of the ways that could have turned out, and pretty darn lucky it went the way it did, I guess.
Did you have a tow truck come up and get you, or
what's that?
A tow truck drive up there and rescue you?
Yeah, no, I made the kid. He got a ride to town with a logger, and he bought a starter. And and I told him, I says, it didn't actually cut the transmission. It was an automatic transmission. Didn't cut the line, but it basically crimped it and put a little nick in it.
Oh, okay.
So I said, you come back with about 10 gallons of transmission fluid, and he got a starter, and we put the starter on right out there in the woods, and we started pouring the fluid to it, and I drove about 70 miles an hour until it would start to slip, and then I'd put some more fluid in it, and I'd drive again until it started to slip, and we made it about a half a mile from the gate when we run out of transmission fluid.
Oh man, just a line of tranny fluid all the way.
Oh yeah,
I think your bare spot has been marked.
So yeah, made it out. That was a hairy one as far as the things that could have happened. And
so who dropped it off at the mechanic shop? Because
that was, well, see, that's the funny part, because it's a real tiny little community up there, and the first thing that everybody looks at is, wow, what's this thumb-sized hole through the floor? And oh, it looks like you got a new starter on there, and and what's this lead-colored fragments around the transmission line? And of course, nobody wanted to say anything, so I was not the one that dropped it off at the mechanic.
See, I've been that mechanic that somebody dropped off it was an older Tacoma, and it had a 30-06 fire through the passenger floorboard, through the bell housing, broke the flywheel and the clutch. I mean, this guy had to have it, like he coasted it down the mountain. But trying to get a straight story out of what happened, that wasn't happening. It was comical, but yeah, I wanted to know what the real story was.
Yeah, this this one was that's the way it went. I won't go into it any more than that to preserve the integrity.
The lawyers have told his lawyers, like, hey, could you just cut the story short?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
But no, that was kind of a train wreck. And then as far as funny stories go, last year I had a pretty funny hunt. I've always done steel timber sports, lumberjack sports and stuff, traveled around the country, and through a friend of a friend.
Like lumberjack competitions, man.
Yeah.
Log rolling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wood chopping and, socks on,
Gotcha.
2-man.
We got one of those here. Okay. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So through a friend of a friend, I had a couple of guys from the Czech Republic who wanted to come on a bear hunt. And I said, yeah, I'll take them out. And so we set it all up. And now they had a friend along that spoke very good English, but they didn't speak any English whatsoever. So I said, well, this is going to be interesting. And so our hunt starts, and sure enough, first day we get on this slob of a bear. He's over 300 pounds, and he's just walking and fighting with the dogs, and pouring rain. I'm 2 miles deep in the middle of this bog, and I'd had this guy in at like 6 feet trying to shoot this bear, and no communication. I'm like, pointing my fingers. How many times can I demonstrate how to shoot? And that was, yeah, pew pew. We tried it all. I'm telling you. Oh yeah. So then this bear goes up, and he turns, and he'd been walking his back tracks a lot, and I get him in position, and I'm thinking we'll never get a clean shot at this bear, and all of a sudden they step on this little hump of old growth hemlock that for some reason they didn't cut it. It looked like a park in there. It was only about 100 yards long, 50 yards wide, and I'm like, the bear won't come up on this. All of a sudden I'm like, here comes the bear. I'm thinking this is a done deal. So I got him standing beside a tree, and I'm peeking around the tree, and here they come. The wind's right. This thing walks up 6 feet from us, and I'm like, shoot, pew pew. It's trying it all.
I love it.
He's not shooting, and so now we start sort of jogging right beside the bear, and the bear's just sling his head over, and he'd look at us, and I'm pointing the gun, and I'm grabbing the gun and pointing it at the bear, and never happened. So his buddy was in the truck with the other guide, And we get out, and he's just ribbing him. I don't know what they were saying, but you could tell he was giving it to him. Why didn't you shoot? You know, and he was over here just about in tears. And so the next day comes, and I said, well, we'll try again. So same guy again, and walking a bear is about a 200-pounder. He missed the road crossing. Well, he goes up on the hill, comes right back, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. I said, maybe we got the jitters out on that one. So I get them all lined up here, watching the Garmin. I'm like, oh, he's going to be right in front of us, about 20 yards away. Bear jumps this flooded ditch on the side, lands on the side of the road, broadside, looking at us. And here I am, pew, pew, shoot, shoot, anything, bang, bang, you know. And he finally picks the gun up, and it seemed like an eternity. I'm thinking, this bear's going to run. This bear's going to run. You got to shoot.
Yeah.
Squeezes the trigger right when the bear turns and runs right through all of the dogs, you know, turns into a cluster. So that didn't happen. So now his buddy is really giving him a hard time, really hard time. So I said, all right, I'm taking the other guy the next day. So here we go. We're on another bait up bear, a couple 100 pounds, and it's fighting the dogs. It's going on for 3 or 4 hours in the same swamp I was the first day. And all of a sudden there's this grassy road. The alders usually are choked right out. You can't see anything. Well, this opened up about 50 yards long, 10 feet wide, just like you'd mowed it. And I look over and I'm like, this doesn't get any better. Here comes the bear. Dogs are all right behind it, just walking. And I get him all. He sees the bear. He's all set. Of course, these guys were using my rifles because they didn't want to, you know, fly. But I shot with them. I spent a whole day shooting with them with the gun. So they were familiar with it.
Right.
And so this bear comes out, and I mean, we're a mile deep in there. This bear doesn't expect to see anybody. Steps into that grassy spot, not a blade of grass between us, and he just stands there broadside looking at us. And here I am again, shoot, shoot, bang, bang. And this guy's finally gets the rifle up, and then I look, and I'm like, why aren't you killing that bear? And he's squeezing and he's squeezing. So I'm like, oh my God, he didn't take the safety
flip that
off.
little switch right there.
So I'm yelling, safety, safety, safety. And I'm trying to reach over and push it. And he finally gets it off. Bear's walking straight away. I'm like, nope, no shot. Dogs got in the way. Luckily, I cut a couple dogs in there. It ran out to the road, and it treed right beside the road. And the other guy actually got in there and made a great shot when it was jumping out of the tree. And so he got one bear. And then the last day, it all fell into the place the way it should be. A nice 400-pound bear walk in, and this time I stayed in the truck with the guy. I didn't get anybody excited, you know. And he's like, "What do we?" You know, you could communicate a little bit.
Yeah.
Basically asking, "What are we going to do?"
Yeah. By 4 days, you've gotten the shoot command. You've practiced that enough.
Yeah, grunts and points and whatever. You got it figured out.
He knows English for the word shoot. That's the word you taught him in 4 days. He's like, I don't know much of else English, but I know shoot.
Yeah, and you know, pouring rain again, and I said, well, we're just gonna go for a little walk here, and I said, yeah, just bring the gun just in case, and I knew this was coming into the right place to kill it, and we just walked up there 400 or 500 yards, and there was these nice skid trails, strip cut. And I'm like, well, we'll go up this one to the right. And the whole time I'm like, this guy's walking right at us, you know. And last minute I see the bear, and I push him a little bit left-handed, and bear steps right out 20 yards away, shoots him right in the side of the head, got himself a 400-pound.
No kidding.
But it was a whole week of anything that could go wrong went wrong.
You earned it that week, huh?
Oh, man. And I'll tell you, it was fun in the end, and I can laugh about it, but the middle of that week, I was not laughing.
How bad.
That's why you don't want a friend like me around, because I'll be laughing during it. I'll be like, Mark, it sucked for you.
So, yeah, it's, you know, there's all sorts of goofy stories that can happen like that.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. No, I can't imagine. Like I said, guiding has no little desire for me, because I'd probably be.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have any return clients. You wouldn't.
If it was me, I wouldn't be laughing, but
you wouldn't have to worry.
Boy, I can sure see the humor whenever I'm not in the situation.
You know, you get used to it, I guess, after a while, and it is every now and then you get a guy that knows he's not the sharpest hunter in the world, but he's really trying and he's enjoying it. Those are the fun guys, you know, because he realizes, hey, he had a chance, he didn't get it. You know, it's not the end of the world if he goes home without one, because he had his chance. But
right,
you know, you get some fun ones like that, but then you get a lot of the guys that just they expect like super easy. I want to be 400 to 450 pounds, and I want to walk about 200 yards at the most, and you'll have to carry my gun for me and bullet. And
sign me up for that plan. Just put me on the
yeah,
books and
yeah. That's the hard part with the guiding, and it unfortunately here in Maine, you kind of have to guide if you really want to hunt your dogs, and with the breeding program that I've got and stuff, I got to hunt a lot to kind of prove out these young dogs, see what they're made of. So I have to guide to do that.
Yeah. Now, we should have talked about this on Paul's episode, but Jason had to do a tail in on that because we didn't really get into it. But how is your Maine, like you came up to Wisconsin when we all gathered there,
Yep.
and with all the different states and stuff like that, and so you got that one defeated. And you have the Maine Guides Association is pretty much the big one in Maine.
Yeah, well, that is an organization here in Maine, but there's also the Sportsman's Alliance of Maine, which is actually a really good sized organization. And the Sportsman's Alliance of Maine is actually, that's who I really put a lot of faith in them. They're fighting for whether you're a fisherman, a trapper, a bear hunter, they're really doing some good stuff. Gun owners, everything in general. So, between the two organizations, they've done a lot of good stuff here. The Guides Association, Sportsman's Alliance of Maine have both had some good victories, and we're looking pretty good right now. But they're constantly coming after us. They're really attacking the coyote hunters in the Northeast right now. That's a bad spot for us. They're getting some leeway with it, and they're starting to get a few victories. So you can't rest on your laurels and not worry about it. Everybody needs to stay involved to some degree and join an organization. I don't care what one it is. Join one and try to get active. I'm the least politically motivated person in the world, but I came out there to Wisconsin to try to help things out, and gotten involved a little bit, and just do what you can do.
Yeah, no, it is definitely something we all have to do. You guys had, because you weren't really well organized at the last round, right? You guys fought it off, and then they came back, and
so the first round, I mean, we just skinned by. We made it. The second round, we did get organized a little better, but it's still. I am so impressed with Michigan and Wisconsin and the organizations that those guys have and how they work together. I'm still trying to figure out how they do that, and they work together so well. So
how they get that many hound guys together in a room and not have more fights. I mean, that's the part I'm like, man, I don't know how this happened. You have this many people in a room.
Here in Maine, the bait hunters versus the hound hunters, it's a war.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you what, man, I pull my hair out at times trying to talk to these guys. And out there, they got everybody in the same room, all getting along.
Yeah.
While they're drinking beer.
Yeah, exactly. You're not just in the room, but they actually got beer in the room. Yeah. And I'm like, this is like math.
It's a ticking time bomb, you'd think.
Yeah, math doesn't add up like this. I mean, I took algebra. This equals fights. I don't understand it. I can't figure it out.
And they get along so good. It baffles me. I can't understand it, but they do a great job. And hopefully, and obviously they've done a lot. They did a lot for Maine.
Yeah.
Joe Hudson, the UP Bear Houndsman, they wrote a $50,000 check that first referendum for us. That was a big deal, because that first time, I mean, we didn't have the fundraising in place. We did better at it the second time, but still, the problem is you're in a rural state here. There's not a lot of money. It's pretty hard times for a lot of people. And how many times are you going to be able to get them to give up their life savings to bail out the bear hunters? And eventually it's going to catch us.
Yeah, staying organized and being on some of the issues is a lot cheaper than waiting. And both of those organizations have
people watching the legislation now, and they're right there, and that's the difference. They can get stuff killed before it ever comes up to vote, and make stuff disappear before the average people know about it.
Yeah.
Right.
So those two different organizations, the Maine guy, what is it? What's it?
Maine Guides Association.
Maine Guides Association, and then Sportsman's Alliance.
Sportsman's Alliance of Maine. They go by Sam.
Sam. Okay. Is that a chapter of the Sportsman's Alliance, or how's that?
Nope, no, and that's kind of that's a funny. They changed their name, the U.S. Sportsman's Alliance. They're going to change their name, around that referendum time, so people get it confused. But they're a state organization. They have nothing to do, no affiliation with that.
Okay.
It's for Maine sportsmen. They put out a newsletter monthly. I really like them. I think they're really, they're working hard, and they're really watching stuff from gun rights to trappers to hunters. I mean, they're really doing a good job keeping in front of it as well as we can. But we just always need more people to get involved.
And to give credit to Sportsman's Alliance, they were a big part of you guys' main initiative too, back when you guys fought that last time. So
the Guides Association and the Sportsman's Alliance of Maine both contributed a lot.
Yeah, and then Sportsman's Alliance, U.S. Sportsman's Alliance.
U.S. Sportsman's Alliance.
So it was like everybody kind of came together, but I just wanted to find out. The name confuses me.
Yep.
And so not knowing all the details, I was just trying to make sure. So if you're in Maine or in the area, make sure you're a part of some of those groups, because they need you, and everybody kind of needs us to stay engaged.
Here in New England, it's smaller than it is out west. You take our neighbors, New Hampshire and Vermont, very small states. And right now they both have hound hunting. They're under attack real hard too. New Hampshire has a wildlife federation. It's a little different process, but they're trying to get antis on the board and places that there shouldn't be antis. And, so, if one of those neighboring states gets something passed bear hunting wise for hounds, it's going to flood over onto us.
Yeah.
And, so we really need to stick together with everybody.
Right. So what's the rest of your season look like? So we're September.
Well, yeah, so right now we're the bait hunters are hunting right now. They get 2 weeks that go before the hound hunters. They open
bait hunters. I mean, just kidding.
So they're out there killing bears, sitting on stands right now, probably, and
you're killing them all, Mark. You're not gonna have any left by the time you get up there.
Oh, come on now. Luckily, all the big ones are nocturnal, and they'll never kill.
I'm spreading hate and discontent.
No turf wars.
Exactly what we're not supposed to do, right?
But September 14th, our hunting season opens for bear, and I'm pretty booked up. The first really 3-4 weeks, I'm right out straight, and there's not a lot of natural feed this year, so they're really hitting the baits hard. It'll be kind of fast and furious, and the bears are fat right now. I've treed some really large bears that generally you don't tree, but they're carrying so much fat they can't stay on the ground and fight the dogs.
Okay.
So, you're treeing them, and that means also that they're going to go in really early. By the first week in October, a lot of places in Maine, it'll be really hard to find a bear race. Younger bears will be about out, but the big ones will be, either close to where they're going to den or starting to go in. It usually gets pretty slim pickings in October.
Do you so how do you navigate deer hunters? I mean, the same seasons, or
bow hunters can go right now during part of the hound season, but honestly, the bigger one would be the bird hunters and the moose hunters, because the moose hunters are going right in the middle of hound season, as well as the bird hunters. And grouse hunting here is a real big thing in Maine.
Yeah.
I actually, the rifle season opens later in November. We're all done with the hounds by then, so there's no conflict there. But really, we don't seem to have too much trouble with moose hunters. About the only thing they do is you're not supposed to block these logging roads off, but these moose hunters, some of them will give it 2 miles of road. Well, we pay money from the timber companies to have bait sites, and if we got a bait site down there that this guy's blocking it, that gets to be a little bit of friction sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
you just went your truck off the road, right?
Yeah. We've had a few episodes. Yeah. But yeah, you know, for the most part, it's pretty good. The bird hunters sometimes pick your dogs up, and you know they don't realize what these dogs are doing, and you know everybody thinks a fat dog is a happy dog now, so they see an athlete of a dog and they think he's starving to death, and you know, so they'll pick them up, and you're chasing your dogs around in high speed chases sometimes, trying to get them back from well-meaning bird hunters. You know, they don't realize what the GPSs are and the Garmin's on them and everything.
Which is amazing. You think, I mean, I guess that is one thing about bird hunters, and I always say is there's different segments of bird hunting that some believe in GPS collars, some don't need a GPS collar, some have a check leash, and some dogs are wide, some dogs are short. I mean, there's just so many different, you know, you can't loop them in one group. And so but it amazes me that people don't understand that they don't understand more what our dogs do as far as.
Right. And, you know, the largest percentage of the population bird hunting is really they're road hunters. They drive around and ground swat the grouse in the road. I mean, that's the main tradition, you know.
Yeah.
So those are the ones that really don't know. They'll see a dog out in the middle, you know, and you might be, sometimes you're 100 miles from, you know, any civilization, really. You're out in logging roads and big country. And so they think the dog's lost, and you know, they mean well, they don't realize what they're doing. And usually we're right around trying to get to the road to get them.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I had to call the border patrol one time and chase a guy down that stole a dog. And that was the one good thing. The one time Facebook saved me. Guy posted a picture of him and his new dog, and I looked at that picture and I said, that's my dog that I've been missing for a week looking for, you know. And I called up Border Patrol, because this was up near the Canadian border, and you know there is no really state police up there. You just use the Border Patrol. So they swooped in there and got my dog back, and it all worked out in the end. But yeah, it's a different world sometimes.
Wow. He was just gonna make a pet out of it, huh? He wasn't even a hound guy.
Yeah, he was a logger out there, and you know,
really I mean, gosh.
Yeah, most times the loggers are great, you know, and this particular fella, he made up, you know, I basically stayed until 2 a.m, and this dog was 2 miles deep, and finally laid down, was baying a bear all day. And I said, well, I'll come back at daylight. And usually they get up, you know, about daylight and start moving towards the road. They hear the log truck. So I got up there, and I put the dog, you know, I put the collar down on a 2-minute update so I'd have plenty of battery life and all that. She was just gone. And this guy tried to tell the Border Patrol that, you know, he'd been driving by there for 3 days and the dog was looking lost and walking up and down the road. And, you know, she vanished into thin air. So I was lucky enough to get her back, you know.
Well, cool. We probably should start wrapping up. Jason, you got anything you missed? Or are you sleeping?
I think we covered all that and then some. What I had in mind.
I think we did.
That's a lot to cover. That's a long one, but I mean, when you got taxidermy,
I know we started off in Oregon, and it's like I don't even remember. Started in Oregon, ended in Maine. We covered a lot of ground. Utah, we hit Utah.
That was a fast hour and a half, or well, probably a little over now.
Doesn't put everybody to sleep.
No, it was a good one. So awesome. Well, Mark Dufresne, right?
Yep.
I see. Good job. Why is the S silent? I don't even.
It's a French thing.
Uh-oh. We just ruined the whole podcast. Maybe we can edit that out. I don't know.
Just cut that.
Yeah, no, it gets everybody.
Yeah, no, you don't.
I was the one trying to call me and sell me an extended warranty for my piece of junk pickup truck out there.
It's got a hole in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really butcher my name well.
Yeah, right on. All right, Mark, we're going to have to do this again. That was a good one.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
You have a good one. Good luck this season. You got a couple weeks.
All right. Thank you.
All right, see you, Mark.